Okay, so for this lesson, one of the most important things with Bootstrap is you need to understand the layout. And it works off of this 12 column grid. And you need to understand how this 12 column grid works and how it works in conjunction with containers, rows, and columns. So for this, you have basically, and I'll talk here for just 1 second, lecture here. But you have basically three main pieces. The first is your containers, and that can be either responsive or it can be a fixed width that snaps to certain breaking points, or completely is fluid and covers 100% of the width of whatever the browser window is. And then you also have the column grid. So it works off of this 12 column grid system that has breakpoints for extra small, medium, and large, and extra large devices. So if you're coming from a previous version of Bootstrap, it didn't have quite as many breakpoints as what Bootstrap 4 now does, but you can create the multiple layouts regardless of which version of Bootstrap that you have. I highly recommend that you just go in and download, the latest version, but I'm giving you the latest version in these files in that template. So you have that and all of the updated CSS to work with and use. So this works off of, like I said, this 12 column grid responsive system. It can be a flexed base, like this Flexbox based layout. It has structure with containers, rows, and columns. And then there are two different types of containers. Grid containers, which can either be a container or container fluid, and I'll show you how both of those work. With both of those, you get a 15 pixel padding on each side, so it works well with background elements and other elements that perhaps you've added into the website. And then there are breakpoints for the regular container. Anything smaller than 576 pixels, just adjust to content smaller than that. And the adjustment breakpoints right now are 576, 768 pixels, 992, and 1200. All right. Then you have your, that basically, let me show you, coming from there, how this then works. Now, when I have you open up a specific file, you want to make sure that regardless of whether you're using brackets or, in my case, Dreamweaver, I'm just using Dreamweaver as my base, but I'll be typing in here and doing the code and everything within Dreamweaver. Brackets is the same thing, though. You need to go in and make sure that you define, or whatever HTML editor you use, but you need to go in and make sure you're defining your root folder. In Dreamweaver, to define the root folder, you go up to Site, New Site, and then you choose whatever that new folder is. So in this case, what we're going to do is open up and define as our root folder the 0302. I'll just name this Mastering Layout or something like that. Doesn't matter what your title is. It's not going anywhere. It's just for your own use. And then I'll navigate to that file, which in my case is on my desktop, and it's going to be underneath your student files, which is here, and it is here for me, but you guys need to navigate wherever you have put these. And then it's the 0302, so that's where we're beginning. So I'm going to define that as my root folder, and for every single file now, every single time I move into a different lecture here, or a different part of the lecture, I'm going to go in, define the root folder in Dreamweaver. In brackets, again, just choose it. Make sure that you're opening it, because that way all of your CSS and jQuery and JavaScript and everything else you need is all contained in there and all linked up, and you don't have to worry about it. So you see up here in Dreamweaver, it's all right here. Here's my Bootstrap CSS, my jQuery popper, and the Bootstrap JavaScript. So it's all right there. And then for all of these files, all you'll do is open up the index.html file. I'm going to close this one so I don't get confused here with all of these that I have going here. And open up my index.html. So this is currently what it looks like. You can see up here, we have this picture. It's kind of cut off at the top. It's the way the photo is. If I preview this in a browser, open it up and preview it, but I can kind of take this and stretch it out here in Dreamweaver. Well, I used to be able to. Let's see if I can get my window right. Otherwise, I'll just open it up in the browser. But you can see here as I open and close this, that how the image looks. The fact that this isn't inside of a container or anything, it's just kind of right here. With all of, you can see all of the text and everything is kind of right up against there. That's because there isn't any structure to this. So right now you'll see that you have this header, just has a class of clear fix, style, height, background, and so on. And then the image is set in there. Then you have section with services, article, 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 article. All these have a class of maximum. If you recall, I kind of talked about that just briefly, that if you put a maximum for the image, then that's basically what it's going to be. So all the images are going to, open up to the same thing, auto, and then anyway, that's what that looks like. So let's see if we can kind of take a look at how putting in different containers, different styles, and so on, so that you can see what these breakpoints and layouts and so on are going to look like. So right now the picture is just 100%. It's displayed as black. And then if you see in here in the code in the header, this is just a class of ClearFix. We'll cover that in a little more detail as I go down the line here. But the image source is this SVG image. Because it's an SVG, then it expands with the width of whatever your browser window is. So as the browser window gets, bigger, 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 then this is the way that picture is going to look like, just simply because there's no control up here in the header of how that is functioning, okay? So that's kind of what that looks like without any kind of class styles. The class of here where it says no repeat, center, that's how come the image is staying centered. So in the first section, what we're going to do here, this section right here, we're going to go ahead in here and add a class of container to kind of separate these out. So to do that, I'm just going to go in here right before it says ID, and I'm going to put in here class equals container. Now, one of the reasons why I am not in the classroom teaching is, some of you might know, but I had open heart surgery, just to tell you, and had complications with that. And one of them was I had a minor stroke. So my typing isn't the quickest, and I do make mistakes and errors. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit here throughout this, program and through my videos and so on, if I tend to get a little goofy with my typing. So anyway, I put that in here. So right now, you see that unlike before, where the text was right up against the edge of the page. Now you'll see that giving this a class of container is separating this out and giving it an actual container. It's actually holding it just like it would, for those of you that know HTML5 and so on, just like it would with an HTML5 giving a div tag with a container, maybe a name container or something, but separating things out in div tags and then going ahead and giving a property. Now you'll notice that the header still has that class equals clearfix, but let's go ahead and add a container now to the header. So right after the class equals clearfix, we're going to type in here, right between the quotes, we're going to say container. And now look at your image. So now with the image, it now kind of pulls it in, and it, is, because of the fact that it's an SVG, it's going to look like that. But with the clearfix container, it may not necessarily be kind of the look that you want. So if we remove the container from the header again, you're going to get this picture that's going to come all the way across here inside here and cover as you open and close this. Now we'll fix the fact that the image is, looking like it is. We'll fix that down the line here so you can see why that is and what's going on there. But that is the case. Let's go ahead and create then with this, just kind of taking again a look at the containers and the placement of the image. We have right now here, it's header, class equals clearfix, style equals height. And then you have, your background and so on, and the URL image, etc. So you have all of that. And what I want to do is right after we have this 20 pixels here, right after we have this is where we're going to put in a container. So go ahead and after that, right caret, go ahead and hit your return key and put in the div class equals container. So it's going to be your left caret div class equals container in quotes. All right, don't forget your right caret. And then of course we have to go ahead and close that. What I'm doing here now is I'm gonna, sorry, I got myself lost here. And so now what I'm going to do is after this pet logo here, after that image that we have in there, I'm now going to close that div tag there. Not after the header, but after that image. So I'm actually wrapping the image inside of a div tag. So I'm going to close my div tag right there. And now you'll see that what happens is this SVG right here, this particular image, that's this image right here, has now moved in and given that space there. It's actually been placed inside of that container, and so that is how come it has moved inside of that header there. So that's kind of starting to look pretty good, except we do still have a problem with this image here, which we'll cover again, like I keep saying, kind of down the line here. Let's change the div class container to container fluid, just so you can see what the difference is between these two. So right up here, line 21, I have in Dreamweaver, I'm going to put in here, instead of just container, I'm going to put a hyphen and then fluid. And then you'll see that this now bounces back, that logo now bounces back over to the side over here. And as you open and close the window, it's going to stay right there on the side. All right, so that's the difference between the two, which is your container fluid, and that is fully responsive. And it just kind of depends, and it doesn't have adjust to any of the breakpoints or anything. It's always going to snap to the width of whatever the browser window is. It still has the kind of that 15 pixels of space right here, but again, you don't have it going, it inputted so that it's aligned here to any of these others. Remember, we put a class equals container here for this section that holds all of this stuff, all of these different categories. All right. So sometimes the containers work better than the container fluid. Just depends visually what you want. All right, so let's say the way that we kind of work is depending on how you want to group content together. So we're going to, in here, go ahead and just kind of look real quickly here to placing, different rows and sections and so on. So usually what you do for rows is right here we have this section equals class container text hyphen center. We're going to type inside of here. So section class equals container space text hyphen center. And now you'll see that all of this text and all of these columns in here is centered. So that's how you center the text. But you really should have a row kind of inside of this that's holding this together. So each one of these should be a separate row in here. We'll talk about that in 1 second here. All right, let's go ahead and look at just a couple other things here. Before we move on, I'm kind of looking here to see the text here. All right, so let's, after your article, let's go ahead and choose all of the article text. Now, kind of a quick little way here for choosing in here. And for some, it doesn't necessarily, for some versions of whatever you're using, doesn't necessarily work like this. But if you just put your cursor right before the right caret, right between the E and the right caret, hold down your command key and then go to the next article and do the same thing and click. Now I'm on a Mac, so that's why I'm holding down my command key. Then I go to the opening tag of the next article and click, opening tag of the next article and click, opening tag of the next article and click, opening tag of the next article and click. And then what's going to happen is everything that you type in here now is going to be typed in all of these, as opposed to you having to type every single one of these separately. So I'm going to put a space, and see it puts a space for every single one of these. It's putting a space. And then I'm going to type in here class equals COL in quotes. So this is for a column. So class equals, and then in quotes, COL for column. All right. So now what you have is each one of these are in their own little separate column. Now you aren't going to see a lot of difference in here as I close and open the window. It's still just going to stay there in its own little column. But as we get into the grid, it's going to stay in that container. I'm going to stay in its own little column because that's how we have it set up and spaced right now. So let's talk about columns. We're going to move on from there, and hopefully, you understand that. Now, for all of these, and I'm going to start a new video for this, but let's move on to just kind of using columns and looking and seeing how this is the important part of where we're going to get into this 12-column grid and how these span the section of the browser. So that'll be the next video.